The essences of the gods had no origin, for things that exist forever are never originated, and those things that have the primary power, and by nature cannot be affected by anything, exist forever. They also do not consist of bodies, for even the power of bodies are incorporeal. They are also not contained in a place, because that belongs to bodies. And the gods are not separated from the first cause or from each other, just as intellections are not separate from intellect, nor knowledge from the rational soul, nor again perceptions from the irrational soul of an animal. It is worth investigating, then, why the ancients neglected these rules and made use of myths. This is already the first benefit of myths, to investigate rather than be lazy in our thinking. Now, we can say that myths are divine on the basis of who uses them, seeing that it is the inspired among the poets and the best of the philosophers who employ myths, as well as those who introduce the mystery rites, and the gods themselves and their oracles. Philosophy must also investigate why the myths are divine. So, since all beings delight in likeness and are repelled by unlikeness, it befitted stories about the gods to be like them, so that the stories might be worthy of their essence, and make the gods propitious towards the narrators, which can be effected only by the myths. Now the myths imitate the gods themselves in what is expressible and inexpressible, unclear and clear, manifest and hidden, and they imitate the goodness of the gods. So as the gods have made the good stemming from perceptible things common knowledge for all, but those stemming from intelligible things only to the wise, in the same way the myths tell everyone that there are gods, but who they are and what they are like, they tell only to those who are able to understand. They also imitate the activities of the gods, for one might even call the cosmos a myth, since bodies and objects are manifest in it, while souls and intellects are hidden. Besides, wishing to teach everyone the truth about the gods provokes contempt in the unintelligent, since they are unable to learn and neglect the studious. But disguising the truth in myths prevents the contempt of the former and compels the latter to philosophize. But why have they spoken about adultery, theft, fathers in chains, and other absurdities in the myths? Or is this rather worthy of admiration? That through the apparent absurdity the soul is immediately led to conclude that these stories are concealments and to believe that the truth is inexpressible. Of the myths, some are theological, others are physical, some psychological or material, and others again are a mixture of these. The theological myths do not concern a body of any kind, but look to the very essences of the gods, for example, Kronos devouring his children. The myth riddlingly describes the essence of the god, because the intellect of God, who is all intellect, reverts into himself. Myths have a physical scope when they talk about the activities of the gods relating to the cosmos, as, for example, some have thought Kronos to be time. They say that the children were devoured by the father because they call the parts of time the children of the whole. The psychological type concerns the activities of the soul itself. Thus, the intellections of our souls also go out to other objects, and yet they remain inside those who generate them. The material kind is the lowest. The Egyptians in particular have used it, out of ignorance, thinking that the gods are the bodies themselves and calling the earth Isis, moisture Osiris, heat Typhon, water Kronos, crops Adonis, and wine Dionysus. Now, reasonable persons must say that these things, as well as plants, stones, and animals, are dedicated to the gods, but only mad people would say that they are gods, except in the way that we commonly call the orb of the sun and the light from the orb sun. The mixed kind of myths can be found in many different instances. For example, they say that Discord threw a golden apple, inscribed for the most beautiful one, into the banquet of the gods, and that, because the goddesses fought over it, they were sent by Zeus to Paris to be judged. Aphrodite appeared most beautiful to him, and he gave her the apple. In this case, the banquet indicates the powers of the gods beyond the cosmos, and that is why they are together. The golden apple indicates the cosmos, which is appropriately said to have been thrown by Discord, seeing that it is made up of opposites. Because the different gods bestow different gifts upon the cosmos, they seem to fight over it. And the soul that lives according to sense perception, for that is what Paris is, declares that the apple is Aphrodite's, because it cannot see the other powers in the cosmos except for beauty. Of myths, the theological ones are appropriate for philosophers, the physical and psychological ones for poets, and the mixed ones for mystery rites, because every mystery rite aims to connect us with the cosmos as well as to the gods. If it is necessary to tell another myth, they say that the mother of the gods saw Attis lying by the river Gallus and fell in love with him. She took a starry, conical hat and put it on him, and thereafter kept him beside her. But he fell in love with a nymph, and so abandoned the mother of gods and slept with the nymph. And because of this, the mother of gods makes Attis go mad, cut off his own genitals and leave them with the nymph, and return to dwell with herself again. Now, the mother of the gods is a life-originating goddess, and for that reason she is called Mother. Attis, meanwhile, is the demiurge of the things that originate and perish, and for that reason he is said to have been found next to the river Gallus, for the Gallus symbolically represents the Milky Way, from which comes the effectable body. And since the primary gods perfect the secondary gods, the mother of gods is in love with Attis and gives him celestial powers, for that is what the felt cap is. And Attis is in love with the nymph. The nymphs are the overseers of origination, for all that it is originated flows. But because it is necessary that origination be stopped and not originate anything even worse than the lowest things, the demiurge who creates these things, after he has sent originative powers to the realm of origination, is reconnected to the gods. Now, these things never took place at any point in the past, but they always are, for while the intellect contemplates all things at once, language must relate some things first, others after. And so, since the myth has an apt correspondence to the cosmos, it is an imitation of the cosmos, for how else could we be better adorned that we celebrate a festival about these events? And firstly, as we ourselves live in misery after having fallen from heaven and being joined to the nymph, we abstain from grain and other thick and sordid foods, which are all contrary to the soul. Then, the cutting down of a tree and fasting, as if we too cut off the further procession of origination. After these things, nutriment of milk, as if we were reborn. Finally, hilaria and garlands, and, so to speak, a return upwards to the gods. The time of these acts gives confirmation to all this, for the acts are performed around the spring equinox, when originated things cease to originate, and day becomes longer than the night, which is fitting for ascending souls. At any rate, it is told in the myth that the abduction of Kore, which is the descent of souls, took place around the contrary equinox. Now that we have said this much about myths, may the gods and the souls of those who wrote the myths be propitious to us.